Okay, so dad stories. Now let me preface all my dad stories by saying that I have 4 siblings and we were all raised by completely different parents. This is how I remember my father. This is why I love my dad so much, and I am sure that all of my siblings will have completely different stories about him. So just remember, these are from my point of view, and from my point of view, why remember the traumatizing stuff, right? Because not every childhood is perfect, especially us, right? But what is perfect is that we can deem some sort of meaning and understanding when we look back on things and understand that that's what made us who we are today. So my siblings may have completely different experiences than I'm sharing, but I share the positive and what I got out of it. And so I want you to understand that these are my dad's stories. And so my dad was a great dad. I have 3 brothers. They were born in 60, 62, and 64. Now, I was born in 73, and my sister was born in 84. He was very busy in his older years, and he used to say he saved his best 2 shots for last. Those were his words, not mine. But when he was a young father in the 60s, he came home from Jim Beam, and at that time, the farm, we had a corn crib that was built in the 1800s, the early 1800s, next to a newer barn that was built in probably the 50s. And there was a little 3-foot gap in between the corn crib and the barn was up about 2 feet, okay? And in that 3-foot gap was a picket gate that opened and closed, like just for one person to go through. And picket, meaning like it had little sticks at the top, right? Little sharp sticks. And so he came home from work one day, and we were free-range parented as kids, and so he goes to holler at the boys, and he looks out and hit on my 3 brothers, who were at the time, my dad said, between like 4 and 8, right? So 4, 6, 8. And a whole bunch of boys in the neighborhood next door. There was one little street next to our farm that had a bunch of little houses on it, and they had boys about my brother's age. And they were all over, and they were jumping from the corn crib to the barn, and the barn back to the corn crib, and they were doing this over and over again like it was a big adventure, right? I don't know why we do these things, but we did. Yes, we would climb up on a very slick, hot metal roof that we painted every year. And we would jump back and forth. We did stupid things. It was just testing our boundaries. But my dad was a big proponent. He loved that. He said, push your own boundaries so you know what your boundaries are. So you know when somebody comes up against them, that's not okay, right? So he says he looks outside, and about the time that he's going to tell them to come down from there, that they don't need to prove it to anybody anymore, he sees his youngest son, my brother Brent, go, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." And he's jumping from the corn crib up to the barn roof, and my dad says that his heart just stops. It just catches in his chest, and he physically felt a hand come around his throat as if to tell him to shut up. And my brother said, "Watch this, it's so exciting," or whatever a little boy would do. And my dad said that he couldn't say anything because he knew if he said anything that would throw off his confidence and he would miss the jump that he'd probably been doing for the last several hours, right? He said, "Brent jumps, and he makes it. Not by much, but he does make it." And my dad takes a deep breath, and he says, "Thank you." Because in his mind, all he could see was Brent falling off and being impaled on that picket gate down below, right? He says, then he starts clapping and cheering at all the boys, and he says, "Oh, you guys are so amazing. You don't ever have to prove that to anybody anymore. You've already done it. That's something that you've accomplished. Come down here. I have something for us to do." He said the first thing they did was take that daggone picket gate down, and they put up just a flat board fence. He goes, at least if they kept doing this, they would just break something and they'd bounce off. And he made sure that the ground on either side was grassy and soft in case that did happen. So, yep. Raising kids, especially kids like us on a farm who are pretty consistently getting in trouble, can be challenging. But he also taught us a whole lot about who we are as human beings, and he really wanted us to go out and get hurt. Not killed, not maimed,